It's March Mania at Sports Interaction.
Wow.
NHL, NBA, March Madness, MLB, so much more. It's bananas. Bananas.
That was good spelling.
Thank you. Play Pinata Picks and Minute Madness exclusive games with insane odds you can't play anywhere else. Make your next bet at Sports Interaction. Download the app in Ontario. Use the QR code at the bottom of the screen. Or head to sportsinteraction.com/STPN to get started. It's 18 plus. Please play responsibly. Episode 8, Alpha Male, as in AlphaTauri male. Pierre, that's what it was called. It was called Alpha Male. They called it Alpha Male.
When?
The Drive to Survive. They have the episode names.
Yeah. Is that what? Oh, that's
they
the
call it Alpha Male.
Is that what this
episode
8 is called? Oh my god.
Pierre Gasly, Yuki Tsunoda. It starts with them driving around, I think, in downtown Tokyo, and they seem to be really good friends. And I actually saw an interview the other day where they asked, like, Pierre, do you miss Yuki? And he's like, yeah, of course I do. Like, they really seem to get along. And it's different because, like, I know that Lando and Daniel got along, but when, Daniel went down, Lando's like, yeah, I don't feel sorry for him. Pierre and Yuki seem to be like genuine friends.
Yeah. Yes.
And so that's not put on.
No. That's the same with like Carlos and Lando. Like Carlos and Lando.
Carlando.
Yeah, so I was like doing a podcast with Lando Norris back in I want to say 2018, I think it might have been, or 2019. And it was 2019, sorry. And we're just sitting across from each other doing podcasts and whatever, and Carlos just comes out of nowhere and interrupts and just gives him a hard time, like busts him up good. And they were like loving it. The two of them were just like loving it. So it's just like an example of drivers interacting with another driver while they're doing like a media interview or anything like that. Usually it never happens.
Mm-hmm.
Like it doesn't. And for those two, like they're just good friends, man. Like they play golf together quite often. So that's a special relationship. And I also think Yuki and Pierre is a close one as well. Yeah.
And so a lot of the episode centers around Yuki Tsunoda trying to establish himself. He had a lot of spinouts, crashes, and his first season. And they remember the previous season of Drive to Survive. He's like yelling at the team through the radio, and he doesn't want to train. And he's a very unique personality, but with a ton of talent. Yeah. And coming up through the Red Bull system, it's no joke. So, did Yuki Tsunoda do enough last year to cement himself as the number one driver at AlphaTauri?
He's going to argue about that. Yeah, exactly, right? I mean, that's how I was going to bring that up. But I think like for Yuki, it's kind of like it's tough when your teammate is Pierre Gasly. And like Gasly's like he's an exceptional talent, and he's incredibly hardworking. And then you had on top of that the experience. Mm-hmm. And I think for like a driver like Yuki, if I'm going to like measure experience, I'm going to say, Nick DeVries has more experience than probably Yuki does. So does that make Nick the number one driver, or does that put them both on the same level? And if I'm France Toss, I'm thinking put them both as number ones. Let's see what the shakeup looks like after 5 or 6 races, and then I'll make my decision.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought a lot of the episode focused on Yuki not taking everything around being a driver seriously, and them trying to be like, okay, now he's learning to do those things, and now Nick's gonna come in and kind of push him to take the whole thing seriously, because they have the little thing about him hating working out and all that stuff, obviously, and he's always cracking jokes. And is that truly him?
That was a thing. Like I remember we were on a media call last spring, I think it was, and maybe I can't remember what year it was actually, now that I think about it. Sorry, everybody. But Franz basically said that he wasn't taking his training seriously enough. So
it's not a TV storyline.
No, I ended up moving him like too close.
They moved him to Italy.
Factory. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
They made sure that this is your training schedule. This is when you're coming in for engineering meetings during the week, and this is when you have a bit of free time, and that's it, and that's what you were going to do. And I think if I'm a driver, I'm doing whatever it is they want me to do so I can be my best. And I think for Yuki, he's just a little bit more laid back, where it's like, I have this talent, I can lay back a little bit more.
He's never really, he might be so good he's never had to work for it like this.
Yeah.
Right. And then you reach the top and you realize, I have to actually put in work now.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? When you're an athlete, racing driver, whatever it is, and you guys have been around athletes, big part of your lives as well, like, it's just that, you can have a ton of talent, but if you don't marry the talent with the hard work, then the talent's just going to go to waste. And someone who may not be as talented is going to beat you because you just worked harder than they did.
Right.
And that happens a lot in racing. Like if you don't bring that A game and then you marry that with the hard work.
Now they make the episode about the love affair between Pierre and Yuki, which is amazing. And then they talk about Nick DeVries. Now, a lot of people who didn't, if you didn't watch closely last year, you happened to miss the one race he was in. Mm-hmm. He took a Williams car that was awful and turned it into points. And it was like one of the few points that Williams scored last year. And he was just in for the one race. And
how long did he have more points than Latifi?
I think for a good chunk of it.
It was a ways. I think I can't remember when Nicky scored his first points last season. I want to say it was Japan, but I'm probably going to be wrong on that one.
Yeah.
But that being said, I think in defense of Nicholas, I think those two cars were a little different. Like I think Alex, because he was in Alex's car. I think Alex's car was a little bit.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah,
I think
Alex got all the upgrades, right?
Okay.
Yeah. There was that too. I just when I look at like lap time and I look at certain things and I look at the car and I look at how it's like handling and what it's able to do and stuff. I don't know. It just kind of looked like maybe it's just Alex's driving style too.
Oh, sure,
right? Like, there's that as well. I mean, Alex is like an incredible driver. Don't get me wrong, but like his driving style, he has the fastest set of mitts in racing. Like, incredible. But for Nick, he has so much experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like he was Formula 2 champion, Formula E champion. He was a part of the McLaren Young Driver Development Program. He was a Mercedes reserve driver. It wasn't his first time in a Formula One car. Like, if it was his first time in a Formula One car and he goes to Italy and captures points for Williams, I'm going to be like super impressed. But it's like, he'd been in Formula One car as well before.
Okay.
Jumped in.
I still could have had a seat.
I still wasn't impressed.
Don't get me wrong. Incredible performance.
Yeah.
And like he delivered when he needed to, which is the most important thing to do.
But don't act like we took a bus driver and threw him in an F1 car and was like, oh my God.
Well, and he's also 27 years old when he does this, right?
Yeah.
And he's 28 this year. And I think what was interesting is watching my wife, Natalie, who watches the races with me, but doesn't watch as closely as I do. Like I'm like right into it, obsessed fan. She said, wow. Because the difference in personality between Nick and Yuki is pretty unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yuki's kind of fun and cracking jokes. Nick DeVries stares right through you.
Oh, yeah.
It's intense.
He's laser focused.
Oh, yeah.
So why didn't he have a seat before?
So I think if I recall correctly, if I go back to 2018 when he's in Formula 2, I think that was his year to really have a chance at getting into Formula 1 simply because of that McLaren driver development program. I think that was kind of like his window to perform. But in that season, you also had, if I remember correctly, George Russell. You had Alex Albon. You had Lando Norris.
Quite the year.
Yeah. You had Nicky was there. DeVries. I mean, the talent in F2 that season was...
It's crazy.
One
of those crazy years.
Oh, it was wild. I can't even recall other seasons that have been that. Like, and in 2019, it was pretty stacked too. That's when DeVries beat Latifi to the title. But yeah, that season as well had a good crop of talent. The problem is there was no openings in Formula 1. And that's the thing with F1 and Formula 2 and the junior drivers is your timing has to be right. Mm-hmm. And then your opportunity has to be there when your timing is right. So if you win the championship, you have to hope that there's going to be a window for you to jump into an F1 seat. And
otherwise, you have to do what Nick did, which is go in Formula E.
Yeah. And then do a deal with Mercedes and then hang around. You know, that's important. And that's how you kind of like get your opportunity. It's hard, man. Like it's super hard. Like for Nicholas Latifi, like in 20, he was, actually, if I can remember the years correctly, 2019, he was also, he was a reserve driver for Williams, right? And again, if you're a reserve driver with the team, that's a big deal. And then if you go on and you're winning races in Formula 2, which he was, you put yourself on the trajectory of getting into a seat. That's just the way it is. I mean, if you can have those, deals, that's why I said about Nick, right? In 2018, I was like, that's sort of like when his window, it appeared, that's when his window kind of was. But I think now with this new formula, experience matters. Like it makes a huge difference. Like the rookies really will struggle for the first, few seasons maybe. And I think like for Nick, having that timing of wanting to still have the drive to get into Formula One and not being settled with just, hey, I'll settle for just racing around in whatever series. He's like, no, I still want to be in Formula One. I want this. This is what I want. And like for him, all of it sort of paid off. And he took advantage of the opportunity that presented him with the Williams drive. And he nailed it. Absolutely nailed it.
So then, the one thing they don't talk about in the episode is the decline of the second Red Bull team, right? Toro Rosso used to be a midfield staple. Yeah. You would expect them, and they had great drivers, right? You had Kvyat and Ricciardo and Verstappen and Carlos Sainz and all these guys that were coming up through. And now the expectation is that they're going to finish like 9th or 10th. Williams is ahead of them, and the expectation is Williams is going to beat them this year.
Right? Williams looks good.
Well, look really good. Really good.
Williams looks pretty good.
There's nothing wrong with Williams right now.
Both drivers look really good too. Like Logan Sargent looks real good.
I was real happy that I took him in my pool. By
good
the way,
choice. Yeah. But yeah, no, you're right. I mean, it's incredible to see how far they've sort of fallen. But again, I mean, season's early. We've only seen one race.
But last year wasn't good. What happened?
Yeah, last year wasn't really
Are they keeping the team long term? Yeah.
Apparently, so the CEO of Red Bull did come out with a press release saying that they were going to hold on to this team.
Okay.
Because, that was a huge question, right?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you, here's the thing, I would think about it. I would think of considering maybe talking to Porsche and see if they'd be interested in even, buying the team, buying the factory, because you have all the components that you need. You need to come in, or going and talking to Andretti Global and seeing hey, you and GM want to come in and buy this up or whatever, because like we had mentioned before on previous podcasts, the value for these teams is
skyrocketing.
It's gone up big time. So, I mean, why wouldn't you want to sell? But apparently not.
They want to just keep
hold on to it. Yeah.
Well, if they do add another team to the field, because they used to have 22 cars on the grid at one point.
It used to be more than that.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
What was the max?
I want to say they probably got over 24.
Wow.
I want to say they probably got over 24 cars on the grid for sure. That's why I think, this is like a topic we're going down.
Oh, this is good.
That's why it's I would look at it as, you have a competitive field when you've got 24 cars. You need it. I mean, I understand where the teams are positioned in terms of the prize fund, and I understand
having to pay to get in. I get that. Franchise tag.
I don't think when the anti-dilution term came out, it was 200 million. And I don't think they perceived that these teams would be valued any higher than, say, 300 million, because at the time, I believe Williams sold for about 175 million. And so they're thinking,
That's
okay, well,
steal.
Yeah, but and now it's I think the teams are looking more like 600-700 million.
Yeah.
But you can't go back and redo that deal, because
the deal is what the deal is.
Signed off, and so that's why we have all of this stuff happening with Andretti at the moment.
You got to wonder if Claire Williams and her group are thinking we should have held on for a couple more years.
Yeah, maybe.
It wasn't going well. They needed the money.
They needed the money for sure.
Yeah.
How many cars is Indy running right now?
I think they had 27 cars on the grid for this past race at St. Pete. I My numbers could be way off, everyone, and my apologies. I don't have my laptop
But
in front of me, but
it's
I believe
noticeable, though.
Yeah, it's
sure
a
it was
lot of
27.
cars. Like they had a big crash at the beginning of the race this weekend, and it took out like 5 cars, and there's still like 20 left.
Yeah, and I'm thankful the drivers were okay from that, because that was a huge shunt.
But those starts, it's so compacted with all those cars.
Well, that's what the thing is. Like, I just always, now we're going to IndyCar. But
Yeah, sorry.
That's the thing with IndyCar. It's like, just do the standing starts. Like, I get
Yeah.
it. Like, fix the gearbox issue that you're having with the overheating because cars were stalling. Like, get that sorted out. Like, get the standing starts, because the problem
rolling
with the
starts are
rolling
it's
starts
wild.
is so much speed coming into it that it's like, hey,
It's chaos.
Yeah, and with 20 plus cars in the starting, like it's crazy. It's madness.
Yeah, because they did do standing starts, years back, and like I always really enjoyed them. And like Formula One standing starts are awesome. The engines aren't as loud as what they used to be,
Of course.
and so that's why with IndyCar, like the standing starts were like so loud, like they blew your eardrums out. It's awesome. You're just like, it's awesome. But like I would.
It's where the grandstand shakes underneath you,
Yeah,
right?
I would love to see IndyCar go back to standing starts, but all that being said, but yeah.
All right.
We go way off topic.
Again, you can catch Nailing the Apex 3 times a week, before a race, after the race, and of course in the middle of the week, because Tim wants to keep you going. Tim Hauraney, the newest member of SDPN.